Greetings, nerds. This is Scene a Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. Happy Star Wars Day 2, Revenge of the Fifth.
So what's tomorrow?
Revenge of the Sixth. So some people like, of course, we had Star Wars Day yesterday. May the Fourth be with you belatedly. Of course, Revenge of the Fifth. But some people also celebrate Revenge of the Sixth. So I guess the Sith, depending on how you want to celebrate your Sith Lord, you can do it today or you can do it tomorrow.
Weird.
Yeah. There's no hard and fast rules. I think anybody who can make an internet holiday, they will do so.
Yeah. Well, regardless of the holidays based on the days of the week, it is Monday and we are recording a very special episode because we had 3 big properties to talk about this week. So we decided to start the week off with Andor, and tomorrow night we will be discussing The Last of Us as well as Thunderbolts. And so we have 3 episodes, all of which I consumed on May the 4th. So I was celebrating in a way.
Yeah, you were.
I was. So Will, what are your thoughts about these 3 episodes?
Yeah. So I really, really enjoyed these 3 episodes. I think the series, each arc has a way of basically telling different types of stories, whether it's a very mix of adventure or if it's. But this one really felt that the the themes that really just stuck out to me with this arc was really the rebellion and resistance, the themes of trust, and the themes of sacrifice and loss. And I think each one of this whole arc really explored that. It slowed down. I thought we really got more into the more a bit more character driven arc. And with this one, especially like I was thinking about our conversations we had last week with about like the editing, for example, at the end of the 3rd episode in the first arc, and how they were jumping back and forth between Mon Mothma's wedding party for her daughter and the things that were going on the Harvest World. But here I thought it was much more a slower pace, more getting into the lives of our characters, and we'll get into some of those points as far as like for example, Cassian and Bix shopping and things like that. So I really felt it was a more character driven arc, and not that the other ones haven't been, but I think we some of the things that have happened up to this point in the series, we really got to spend some real time with them and some of the impacts of things that happen to some of our characters.
Yeah, so I think Cassian and Bix is a good place to start. I
Yeah.
mean, we literally start with them. They're held up. It's a year later after the events of the first 3 episodes, and they are in Coruscant in a safe house that was set up by Luthen. Bix is still dealing with PTSD from her experience with Dr. Gross, and Cassian continues to be trying to protect her and trying to understand with what's going on and fix it. But you can tell that them being on missions has also worn down, where there was an incident off screen involving a soldier who Cassian kills because he sees Bix's face. So we deal with that in the second episode. Luthen visits Bix because Bix is also taking some quote unquote medicine.
Yep.
She's doing some drugs.
Yeah.
And then by the 3rd episode, Bix gets her revenge on Dr. Gross. Yeah, I'm like back and forth about Bix and Cassian. I will be honest, the whole time I'm watching this, like, and if anybody remembers last week, the Bix stuff I found to be the most interesting.
Mhm.
Think why I it didn't work for me as much in these 3 episodes is because it wasn't Bix alone dealing with it. It was Bix and Cassian, and someone brought up to me Rogue One recently. And so
I wonder who.
yeah, I wonder who. So the whole time I'm watching these 3 episodes, I'm just like, well, I don't know how much I can invest in Bix because I don't know if she's gonna die, but I do know that these 2 are not gonna be together, or else, like, in his final moments, he cheated on her, and I don't know how to feel about that. So like, what are we doing here? And it was weird. I don't know if anybody else felt this way. I'm sure I'm in the minority. Most of the time I am with Star Wars, but a lot of the scenes between them, there was like this, "Oh my god, I'm so in love with you." And then immediately it flipped to we're arguing.
Mm,
Like, it was whiplash, and it was so and it took and all of the things took place within, like, the span of 5 minutes, and I'm just like, "You were just, like, making out, getting ready to knock
yeah.
some boots, and now all of a sudden you're arguing, about the same thing." And I get it, but I also am like, okay, this is kind of a repetitive argument. Hopefully we don't get that argument in the future. I think we will. But
Yeah.
so that was kind of my stuff where it piqued my interest, but as the episodes went on and the more scenes between them, I just became too much of a like, so are we rooting for you two? Are we not? Like what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying about the dynamics in their relationship because you're right. I mean, it's one of those things where I guess Cassian was very concerned, clearly concerned about her because of all the things that have happened. And you're right. I mean, each one of the episodes, there was a flashpoint of whenever Cassian and Bix were together. Um, the first episode, they're so, they were having discussions about the safe house and whether or not they should decorate it and, make it more of their own. And, and then when they went out to the market to try to have a normal life. And I guess this is, to me, it was both of them are the rebellion and the acts that they are doing are impacting them in different ways. And for Bix, yes, you're right. We do see at the end she does self-medicate because of the trauma that she is feeling, the guilt that she is feeling, like losing her. In some respects, I think she's like losing herself because whenever she does question Cassian about why did you kill him and was it necessary, she's really wrestling with I guess internally she's wrestling like what separates me from this guy that we just killed. So, and I think, and Cassian on the other hand is very clearly protective, very uh when Luthen wants him to do the mission to go to Gorham, he he's very concerned about what's going to happen with Bix because and then whenever Luthen shows up and has that conversation with Bix, and then Cassian finds out in the third episode, he just gets all possessive and weird and like loses control to the point where he just like goes to Luthen's shop, and Luthen's like, dude, get a hold of yourself, get a grip on things because you're jeopardizing, you're running a risk of jeopardizing our whole operation because you're letting your attachments like run rampant here. So
Mhm.
it's it's a lot of themes that we've seen before in Star Wars about attachment and mission and not letting attachments getting drive your motivations or drive your passions, because we obviously see where
Well,
where that
well,
can go when it's not like checked.
Well, it's because it's a time of war. I mean,
Yeah.
I do think I like the first episode out of these 3 the best because
Mm,
it's the most quotable episode for me.
mm,
And one of the quotes that I did notate was by Bix, and it's the first of many versions of this argument, and she
mm,
says, "But if it's war, it's not up to us what we save and what we lose."
mhm,
I don't think she's debating, well, what separates me from that soldier? It's more about the value of life. Like,
mhm,
yeah, he saw my face, but and automatically you decided that his life was like worth less than or worth yeah, less than mine. And
yeah.
she didn't know how to reconcile that. And I also think that like you're right to an extent that, like, she's being forced into this soldier mentality that she was not prepared for and doesn't know how to deal with that. Plus the just the PTSD from everything with Gross. I
Mm,
mean, that
yeah.
got layered on. And Cassian, like, there's an echo, and maybe that's also why I like the first episode the first, and that's where I was alright with these 2
Mhm,
which slowly faded is because I think that it's true. Like we've seen these themes before, they've been played out. I think they got very like we've seen this before. Why are we still having the same argument? And it's an echo of what was captured, I think, much more interestingly and much more like in a unique way with Mon Mothma in the previous episode
mm,
because she's having to sacrifice her dear old friend,
yeah,
like, and it
yeah.
was just and it wasn't even like he fully turned, like they didn't know, but Luthen is like, "No, you gotta go."
Gotta go.
Like, you can't take the risk. And the way they played out her whole grief during that dance sequence, I thought was brilliant.
Mhm,
So then to have that theme get carried over into Cassie and Bix, and it just to feel like very similar conversations, and also to an extent, I'm not really sure. I don't really feel like either one of them had like strong arguments because I felt like they were both flip-flopping. Like
yeah,
Cassie's like, oh yeah, we gotta be normal. Like the city is here.
mhm,
And then Bix is
yep,
like we can't go to the walk. Like neither one of them were like understood anything about how to make this right for each other.
yeah,
So or make this situation feel like the home that they wanted it to be, or I don't even know. But
yeah,
it
yeah.
there was too much not under I don't know. It felt messy.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. It's very messy. It really is, and I think to your point, like we're trying to make it home, and you're right. Whenever Cassian was like, "It's Coruscant. I mean, we can just make ourselves. It's a big planet. We can just really, escape into and just be have a normal life." But even whenever they were trying to do that. He couldn't even go to the grocery shop and not feel like the shopkeeper was like
Right, he had
interrogating him.
paranoia,
He's so
like,
paranoia. Yeah,
and rightfully
yeah,
so based off of the events from the previous season. I mean, the
yeah,
kid got sent to jail.
yeah, yeah. So it's like the only time whenever it's even though, like you said, the point of he's so protective of Bix and everything, but it wasn't until he did get the mission to go to Gorm where he was actually able to relax and just do the job. And it's almost like maybe that's the therapy for him, is to be able to fall into the work, and and that's just how he copes with things.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think I was more using the word messy in terms of the what exactly the writers are trying to do throughout these 3 episodes with these 2 characters. I mean,
Mm.
yes, to an extent, the whole attachment in the time of war and all of that, but I think the themes just got messy and the perspectives got messy, and why I really feel strongly about that is because for some reason, like, I think the best arc in these 3 episodes have to do with Syril.
Oh yes, oh yes,
And
definitely.
because, like, take it for the Empire to have, like, a very clean and clear, like, trajectory in their arc, and
Mm.
but also simultaneously, the way they wrote Cyril, I, like a Gorman, was also kind of like, "Wait, why is he acting like this?" And, like, the I just was so impressed by the chess moves between not only Cyril, but Deirdre. I mean,
Yeah.
by the end of it, Major, I'm just gonna call him Major P because no way in hell I'm gonna pronounce that correctly.
Oh, Partagas?
Partagas,
Yeah, I think it's
like,
how you pronounce it. Yeah.
told her, like, Cyril can never know about what we're really doing. And I was just
Mhm,
like, "Oh, damn," like, it's
mhm.
the triple, and yet we know from previous episode that she clearly cares about him.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know, there was just something very much more subtle while being very clear and concise about everything they did with the Major, Deirdre, and Cyril through these 3 episodes.
I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, I think that to me, that was the strongest arc of the series as well, because we do get a more confident the spycraft, and that's one of the things I was also thought that was woven really really well in these episodes, the spycraft on both sides, uh whether it's the rebellion or the ISB. But Cyril bit to play that role, and also being able to, whenever we get him in this first episode, he knows he's being monitored, he knows he's being followed, and the confidence when he's talking to his mother, like,
Mhm.
because he was all, it was convincing.
Mhm.
It was, and I could, and I could see how, especially, one of the things that, I thought, what that the major told, the one Imperial later in the episode, as far as, calibrate your enthusiasm.
Yep.
It was like, it was like it was to me, it was like a good reference to, like, several people that could apply to in this episode. Cyril being one of them. But especially like whenever he had that moment, whenever he was, in the hall there, and they the major congratulates him for
Mhm.
getting him the information, and he was like, "This is the proudest day of my life." And
Well, no,
everyone's
he
like,
said, "If I say this is the proudest day of my life, will
yeah,
I have ruined everything?" And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just and then they cut scene.
yeah,
I
yeah,
I agree, but to go back to Edie,
yeah,
like, and I think it was her dialogue too that just really sold this, but we also know, like, it wasn't, like, planned. This is
right,
just Edie, but I
yeah,
love this one line she says to him during that phone conversation when we find out that in the second episode that Cyril is now the head of the Bureau of Standards in
hmm,
Gorman, and she says, and because in response to Cyril saying this place is hardly a threat to the Empire, Edie says, "Don't become too much of an individual, Cyril."
yeah,
I just like it's one word in that
hmm,
sentence. The use of individual, I'm just like there's subtlety, nuance, and that's impactful because that's exactly like the whole point about this. I mean,
yeah,
the dictatorship. of that the empire represents and that
Mhm.
ideology, it's so against freedom and individuality. I was just like, that is so good.
That was. It just so on so many levels, and it was just so, so convincing to as far as, like, when the people, the Gorman front were listening in
Right.
and especially and I love that, yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Rylance is even like, his mother is horrible.
Yeah.
It's so funny. They're so funny. And then to go into the sequence of like, because yes, yes, they make it clear that Syril knows he's being watched,
Mhm,
but the way they play it all out, it's much later that until you get shown and it's proven that he is sending this information to Deirdre.
mhm.
And so before that, you see him go to a meeting of
Yep.
the Gorman Front. And the way they did the lighting, the cinematography of that whole sequence, as well as the
Mhm.
performances, the fact that Gorman spoke in a different language. Oh, it was Holocaust. Gave me
Yeah.
Holocaust feels for sure.
Yeah.
Like it gave me people are feeling like they are having to go in hiding,
Mhm.
like the propaganda. It worked on so many levels.
Yeah.
That whole sequence.
It did. I mean, yeah, the language, I thought, I did watch the Declassified, they've had some after shows with Andor this season, and, they were talking about you brought up the language, and I just wanted to bring this up real
Mhm.
quick. They based it off of French,
Mm.
um,
I
and yeah, and you could probably hear a little bit a little bit when if you go back and watch, when we see it in subsequent episodes, but also just the vibe and and also we we learned in the first episode, but the Ministry of Enlightenment was going to push this rebellion, push this front forward to like help drive the imperial narrative about this place. And of course, you brought up beautifully like Edie's comments as far as like
Mhm.
what she was saw on the news, and they were tying those things back to tying that together, showing that's one other thing I really like about this series too is they put some they do follow up on things that they put out there. So
Mhm.
it was so we saw the payoff a year later of him being placed there. um
Well, I think him being placed there had more to do with Deirdre because,
yeah.
like, there were 2 different schemes during
Hmm.
that meeting. There was the enlightenment, the propaganda, and the stuff, and you can hear that not only from Edie, but and I think that's more important. Like
Yeah.
that propaganda is being fed to everyone outside of Gorman, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
then on Gorman, you have this other Deirdre's plan, which she told Krennic, like,
Yeah.
you what you actually want is for the rebellion to to win a little.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
that way when they lose, everyone can be on your side still.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
thinking like and the way they played that and executed it out, it was done so well because you remember it, but simultaneously the way they fleshed that out, it felt like they were playing their cards at just the right times to
Yeah.
really spell out what was actually happening.
Yeah, yeah, and also, yeah, and also using the enthusiasm to really drive events, and especially, and I think back to to like I said, the conversations that Krennic and Dedra had earlier on, and also whenever she was, you know, whenever Tardigas was like, "Look, Gorman's a gift." Whenever she was still, she was,
Yeah, it was
some people were
Partagas
like,
who
"Look,"
said that.
yeah, it was like people were like, "This is like is this a demotion?" And even like Edie was like, you know, to their point about their conversation too, Cyril's like very proud of this thing, and she's just like, this is like, it's not a backwater on the outer rim, but she's still trying to poo poo the fact that he was on that planet,
Mhm.
for her own ends, but because she just always try to keep him in his place. To your point about the individual comment, but yeah, I mean, it was a such, again, as I raised before, as far as calibrate enthusiasm. I mean, Cyril is like super super enthusiastic about playing this role, so being, and he's also, because of what Dedra told his mom, like, back off. He, but now, Cyril has now replaced Edie with Dedra as far as just always trying to seek that approval. Um, and so so whenever he's like reporting back to her what's going on the planet, it's really, he's trying to get her approval. And then also the other thing too is just you know carrying things forward, like whenever he set up the communications bug in his, he let the ISB find the bug,
Mhm.
in his office, and just to help carry the mission forward. So again, I think all those little elements of spycraft are just really, really, from the Empire's perspective, or and propaganda was. I
Right.
just really, really liked how they just made it just very. Yeah. So was there not? No, clearly wasn't as much action up until we get to the third episode, but all these other levels were just, to me, were just what really got me engaged, and kept me like really on the edge of my seat as I was watching Cyril's journey in this arc.
I don't think he was overly enthusiastic. I think he was so he it's interesting because like he would have these moments.
Mhm.
And Deirdre, which I don't know if it's him seeking her approval so much as Deirdre has this ability to once she I there's a line that she said that I can't find right now, but she's like never seen him as happy, and I forget in what context
Oh.
she said that. But she's able to reel him back in,
Mhm.
and it's the exact same thing that they parallel with what's going on with Rylands leading this Gorman front,
Mhm.
where they sent Luthen sends Cassian in.
Mhm. Mhm.
Cassian should have been Deirdre, and
Yeah.
he tried. He was pointing things out.
Yep.
But he was being a bit of an asshole.
He was.
And he was also just like, you guys don't got your shit together. I can't help you. I got other problems at home." And that's really why Luthen was upset, is because like, no, Cassian, you actually can help them. You're just choosing not to.
Mhm.
So, and unfortunately, that's what leads them to playing right into Deirdre's hands. Like,
Yeah.
there's no one on their side who is coming in like a Deirdre and saying, "You guys are missing the end game here. Like, you're
Yeah.
thinking short term. You're letting your anxiety about the timing wear too much on you to where you are going to trip up." And that's
Mhm.
exactly how this all plays out. And
Yeah.
man, if I hear any complaints about not enough action, do you know how many episodes of TV I watch where I complain that there's 20 minutes of action and maybe 10 minutes of dialogue? Like, good lord. Action
Yeah.
is only worth it. Like, you can't have the spectacle without the substance. Like, you have to
Right.
earn the spectacle with substance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just like,
T-
good lord, go watch Rogue One.
Yeah.
There's an
Yeah.
entire third act of
Yeah.
action, okay?
Yeah, yeah, but to your point, let's, since we're on the Gorman story, and we do get, you talk about Cassian and his role on the planet. We do get a little bit more history, like with when Cassian is talking to the bellhop, about the Tarkin massacre, which was a very uh, they pulled in the legends, because because if you, that was a story that when people the first Gorman massacre was actually the Tarkin massacre, in the Legends series of Star Wars, but they retconned it twice. Once in Star Wars Rebels. I meant to say at the beginning of this, I'm going to be there may be some moments where I will get into spoiler talk, with things that happened in Star Wars Rebels that is running concurrent in the timeline, with Andor. So just that meant to give that warning at the top, but um, you know, to your point about the events, and Cassian being a jerk when talking to the Gorman folks, um, we do get that historical note about the Tarkin event, and then and to your point about how the rebels on this planet are playing into the hands, and because they didn't have their Dedra, and Cassian wasn't mentally there to do it. So by the time that Cinta and Val come to the planet to like do the job, it, the it was too late, because they make it very very clear to the front. Yes, we'll take off. We'll take on this convoy. We're going to get these items, but they made it very clear. Here are the rules. But because of their undisciplined nature, they fall right into the Empire's hands. As far as and it was just in again going back to Syril's story. I mean, seeing Syril like observe this whole thing just play out, and he just the glee on his face, like it's happening, and this the plan that was hatched is coming to fruition. I thought was really, really, again, I just really enjoyed just seeing that, and again, it just really reinforces some of the overall themes that this arc was really trying to present, with both sides. Um, you know,
Yeah,
having
we
having different aim, having the similar goals, but the outcomes, don't go. Outcome goes one way for one side, and the other side not so much.
yeah. I mean, and why they both win, but the win is tarnished because someone did not listen to Vel clearly state, um, don't or Dylan did not listen to Vel clearly state,
Mm,
nobody else but Vel and Cinta can have blasters, and
yeah,
he has a blaster on him. He gets into a fight with one of the townsmen who we happen to see in a previous episode during the underground meeting, and he pulls out the blaster and accidentally they get in a tussle, fire off a shot. It hits Citra, who kind of knew like Citra or Vel were gonna die just because it felt like there was a pause after she said, "And no one but us can have these blasters." And
yeah,
they both shared like a meaningful moment in
yep,
the leading up to this, like where they were reunited, they were getting their happily ever after. But we all know how Rogue One ends. Do we think that there's going to be much difference here? Like, come on.
yeah, yeah,
So it plays into the things that we were are talking about with Bix and Cassian, and maybe that's also what took away from the Bix and Cassian arguments was like, but here we clearly see it play out, which
mhm,
sometimes I don't want them to tell me what's happening, like the visual representation of it. It can be a lot more nuanced and everything. I also just hats off to the actress who plays Vel, because she really did a good job in her scene with Dylan of holding in grief,
mhm,
being mad, but also not overdoing it.
yeah,
It was just the right mixture of everything.
yeah,
Like, she allowed her words to mean more cutting than anything.
yeah,
Um so like I thought that that was a really good scene and performance there as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, and I think to my point about earlier character driven and character growth, I think the Val of a year or so ago, or even season one, probably would have taken out a blaster and like just taken that guy out. But at the but to your point, I mean, just her the maturity, I think, as far as just as we see the rebellion grow and people understanding, now she gets it as far as like what Luthen and even Sento were trying to tell her about the overall, you know, aim of what we're trying to do here. She gets it now. And so even though she is feeling that just the searing pain of losing someone, especially after they have finally did get back together and look like they were going to get their happy moment.
Right.
That's been ended. And another thing too, I know. Just want to just touch on this real briefly. I think, of course, there has been some discourse in the fandom as far as like, okay, are we doing the bury your gays trope? Because this we do have this gay couple who seems like they can't even have any happiness and stuff. But I see that concern. I respect that concern, but I think in the overall story that they were telling here, whether it was everybody's going to get it at some point. I mean, there's no like to come to come to an end. So did it feel forced or unearned? Maybe. I mean, I felt, to me, I felt in the whole context of the story, it was a lot like Brasso's death. That in that, there's not sometimes there's not going to be you go out in a heroic blaze of glory. Sometimes it is going to be just an empty, hollow, you know, meaningless death, and because this is a messy business. So so I get that concern,
I'm
but yeah,
Yeah. I just want to say I'm not part of that community. If you're offended by what they did with that, then that's your right. If you're not, like, I didn't think of anything of it because
yeah,
maybe that has to do with because I'm heterosexual, but I just I get like what you're saying. I get it, but to me, I don't know.
yeah.
Like,
To me, it's
yeah.
like the similar arguments that happened. I mean, I think the last two, with these two arcs, there have been like big flashpoints as far as the social commentary people have like latched on to. One last week was the attempted rape. This week it's the bury your gates trope. But I think in both,
Sorry. What was the political, like, what was the bad thing about, like, I'm not saying that I don't know how to have this conversation, but what was the discussion last week about the
oh
potential rape?
oh just should it be in Star Wars or not?
Okay, like
Yeah,
wow. Wow,
yeah,
and Will is telling this to me, who is so critical of Star Wars.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, oh my God, I thought I was mean and bad, but
No,
wow. like
yeah,
like
no,
okay, should that be in Star Wars? They didn't actually do it. And also, if you had a problem with that, you best be having a problem with what Gross did to her in the first season, because that was
exactly.
mental rape. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ. And
yeah.
also, isn't this supposed to be like, everyone is always like, oh my God, Andor's best show ever because it's grounded Star Wars, because it
Mhm.
feels more real. And then, but you can't put rape in it. And dear
You can't do
Lord,
it.
if you have
Yeah.
two lesbian characters who are in a war, who are
Mhm.
clearly fighting for the rebellion, and one of them dies during battle. Like, obviously, just using that as a stereotype and a trope, burying the gays. Yeah, yeah, huh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But like I
Yeah.
said, I
Yeah.
also feel uncomfortable talking about especially the barrier gays, because I'm not part of that community. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a part of that community either. I just wanted to I like to have a full on discussion about all the things, both storylines and also if there's any notable items that are being discussed in the interwebs or in the discourse. I just wanted to acknowledge it. So, but we can move on from it. But like I said, I'm not a member of that community. I see where people were concerned about that, but I mean, I could, as an African American, I could be like, oh yeah, they killed the blacks. So I mean,
Yeah.
the black character gets killed early. I mean, it's just like I guess it's just a lot of times it's if you want again, I think in the context of the story that's being told, these things happen, and people are going to die, and that has nothing to do with anything larger than that than just the fact that this is a very messy business, and people die.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway,
Okay.
we can move
Okay.
on from
Well,
that.
we got to speed up because you told me this is going to be 20 minutes. We're on 40 minutes and we got like
Yeah,
three more
sorry.
things to talk about.
Yeah,
So,
well,
so
yeah.
like moving on from that point, my least favorite story arc of this entire show. I don't like Saw. I don't like Saw. I don't
Mm,
He just slowed everything so down for me. And then I
mm,
was like, Forrest Whitaker, I love you, but no, 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 no. Because he also, I haven't liked Saw in Rogue One. I don't remember liking him
yeah.
in season one. Like, I just cannot connect to his character. And so like last week we were talking about Krennic and we
Mhm,
were talking about Ben Mendelsohn and his
mhm,
performance. And like, I love Forrest Whitaker, but there's something about the way he plays Saw that I'm just like, you're too much. I
yeah.
can't get into it. And it's just, you're annoying. I kind of get what you're trying to do, but it just drives me crazy. It's like nails on a chalkboard. And I'm like, we don't
Yeah.
need this.
Well,
So,
Saul's crazy. Yeah, Saul's crazy. I mean, it basically like reinforces the point again that the wild cards of the rebellion. Before the if you know Saul's backstory, of course, his sister was killed in Clone Wars. He from that point forward, he just loses it. And again, think watching Star Wars Rebels, they also explore this this wild cardness and this how he's one that is just what you see in these episodes is the same in the animated universe and shows as well. So he's a very consistent character as far as driving. Of course, the gas was we see why he looks like he does when we finally do meet him we do first meet him we meet him in Rogue One. But uh and the whole story with Wilman, I was just one I was wondering like what ended up happening to him. And we see that he's clearly he's still putting his mechanical skills to use for Saul's team. And but the only I mean only and we can move on from Saul. The only other cool thing I thought was that that whenever I was like, that base looks awful familiar, and we definitely it was used during this time period, and of course later in the sequel trilogy it was also the same base that we saw in the Force Awakens. But yeah, but Saul is Saul, and we'll probably get more of him as we move forward.
so then that leaves us with Mon Mothma.
Mhm.
And that is all I got.
No, yeah, Mon. I like Mon's story in this one, especially with we see her whipping votes for trying to she's like, for example, talking to the Gorman senator as far as and others with the trying to get the PORD, the Public Ordnance Resistance Directive repealed. Because again, there was the whole discussion as far as what did she say as far as are we finding criminals? Are we making them?
Yeah,
And
she
so it was
says that
really
at the end with
yeah
Krennic because they're going through an ideology exchange that's
yeah
kind of mirrored to everything that's going on with Gorman,
yeah
and the Luthen um, Gyla stealing back the listening device.
yeah she used her approach to try to get that back because they of course they were Scudder was I guess worried about the artifacts and stuff. So so they had to get the artifact out. So there was a lot of things going on there. The other cool thing too is just, if I notice other points that was made of with the we do get the recast of Benjamin Bratt as Bill Organa taking over for Jimmy Smits due to scheduling reasons, and that makes sense why they just had the little quick scene with Mon and and Senator Organa, just so that just given clearly the key role that the senator plays and that Bill Organa plays in the Star Wars mythos, better just to get it now, rip the band-aid off, have the story, yep, we recast him, and listen, and then when we see him in the next two arcs, we don't have to go spend time on, oh, where's Jimmy Smits? So, but that was that, so I think there was that. I really did enjoy like the back and forth argument between Krennic and Mon, and just the philosophical debates, and again we see that her pushing more towards just being out in the rebellion, and then also just again the political machinations of the Senate, just basically is just there in name only at this point. The Emperor just continues to like make it more just a rubber stamping body, to the point that, of course, by the time we get to A New Hope, Tarkin, shares with everyone on the Death Star that the Senate's been dissolved. So, so we do see that evolution of that as the story goes, and all the senators just are there to have grand parties and get sworn in, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean the Krennic and Mon Mothma stuff was great, mainly because it's just dialogue, and those two are just such great actors and in these roles that I mean there's so many quotable lines, especially from Krennic. I mean, criminals love to lie, after all, who wants to die for lawless ineptitude? And then
Hmm.
Krennic also says, mainly it's Krennic.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of why I liked Mon Mothma, but I didn't think she had a whole lot going on. She was just really
Yeah.
showing how the propaganda, I mean, this entire 3 episodes is really kind of showing how this is how the empire remains in control,
Hmm.
remains the power, because like they're planting these other seeds and there these other plans that are coming through. So it very much felt like Mon Mothma coming right after the wedding was like not coming home to anything great either.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
sacrifice your dear old friend only to come home and realize like you don't got control in the Senate anymore. People are leaving, your allies, like they're being convinced their loyalties with the empire.
Hmm.
And then you get into a sparring match with Krennic, and I'm sorry, Krennic actually, I think he might have won that too, because he says, I like this line as well. My rebel is your terrorist or something like
Yep.
that. And that like it's so good.
It
Uh,
is.
to it's just clear, concise, and yeah, on the nose. But I think that you have you have the subtletyness with the moves and the spy and the covert operations with Deirdre and Syril, that you can
Hmm.
have Krennic actually point things out so cartoon villain on the nose, but it's coming from Ben Mendelsohn. So it's like,
Yep.
okay, this is dramatic acting
Yeah.
happening. and
Yeah.
and like it is just so good. And we got all of the messy, weird dialogue with the about the PTSD of being soldiers with Bix and Cassian. So, I
Mm.
mean, my final thing that I just want to say about these 3 episodes, and arguably the first 3 episodes, is I just don't know why Cassian remains to be in continues to be like the character I'm drawn to the least.
Mm.
I just I loved him in Rogue One, but I'm
Yeah.
just like, and I yes, to an extent, this plays into I have a tendency never to really like the main characters. It's like that Seinfeld effect where
Yeah.
everyone else around them is so crazy and interesting, and they get it like he has to be the straight man, and so
Yeah.
you're just like, okay, you're a bit boring. So that's the one thing I just want to leave on.
Yeah.
Will, you got any final thoughts, and then we can wrap it up for tonight?
Yeah, we could. Yeah, we could wrap it up. Yeah, I mean, I think just to piggyback off of your thought, I think that's by design. I mean, they just built such a just a rich world, with these characters. I mean, we know where Cassian's journey ends, so I think for me, it's like the destination to get to that to the end of the journey. It's just paved with just such rich characters, like as you mentioned, Krennic and Dedra and all these other people that we've been and Syril. That yeah, their arcs. I'm enjoying learning about all these people, and so that by the time we get to the Cassian and Rogue One, yeah, we get some good moments with him, but these other supporting characters just really it helps contextualize why we have the character that we see there you know in that movie. So I'm really enjoying this series, and looking glad we had we set aside time just to talk about these 3 episode arc, because it does feel like a mini movie in and of itself.
And people who people who have listened to us talk Andor season 1, please let me know if Will told me that when we were discussing season 1, because it felt very deja vu. um, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on all the socials at Will M Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me there too at SJ Belmont, SJBLMONT. Please follow our crew on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Scene and Nerd on Blue Sky. And friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Threads at scene_ed_nerd, and visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.